Hello and welcome back, or welcome to my channel if this is your first time here. My name is Amy and I have an unfortunate obsession with Formula One. Now in today's video, as it is it's not even the off season, it's like a weird 3-week break. To entertain ourselves, we are going to be discussing the F1 Conspiracy Iceberg. So if you don't know what conspiracy icebergs are, they are essentially a diagram of an iceberg. Basically at the top you have the sort of common knowledge topics, memes, conspiracies, controversies or whatever, and the further down you go, the more less well known they are, or the more conspiracy vibes we get. Now, the idea of conspiracy theories and controversies in F1 is not unheard of or uncommon whatsoever. And the recent discussion about Lewis Hamilton potentially losing one of his F1 titles as he is looking into legal options around the events of Crashgate has sort of sparked this idea in my brain. Don't worry, we will be getting into Crashgate later. So as a general enjoyer of conspiracy theories and F1, I figured I would take a dive down this rabbit hole and bring you along with me. But before we get into it, I just want to say that this is all a bit of fun. These are just theories, controversies, ideas, some memes, and I am in no way saying they are factual. This is just for entertainment purposes. Please don't sue me. So the iceberg we're going to be covering is not one of my own creation, sadly. But however, thanks to this lovely website called Reddit, we have plenty of people who have made their own. Specifically the one I'll be talking about is from Reddit user Comfy Remy. So shout out to them. And without further ado, let's get into tier 1. The surface level stuff. Not even the air level stuff. First, Daddy's Cash. Now, Daddy's Cash is obviously a reference to current driver Lance Stroll and how his dad pretty much bought his seat in F1, as in he bought a whole ass team so that his son could stay in the sport. However, I would just like to say I think he now sort of merits being a midfield driver. I don't think he's a bad, awful driver, unlike some other paid drivers, you know? He's developed, is all I'm saying. He's been given the time to develop and grow. However, this is also a reference to a parody song made back in 2018 by creator Simdane, designed to be a sort of parody diss track by Robert Kubica towards Lance Stroll. Yeah. Nowadays, there's also a Daddy's Cash Part 2, directed at Lance Stroll, Nikita Mazepin, and Nicholas Latifi, as allegedly they are or were only in the sport due to their father's money and the sponsors they brought in for the team. And might I add, these songs slap on the low-key? Next up is Spinala. Spinala, like the previous topic, is a meme. It is a term used to refer to drivers when they spin, especially if the driver is Italian or drives for Ferrari. It comes from the Italian word spinare, which I didn't know, which loosely translates to spin it and bin it. It was first used in 2019 by Reddit user Alpha Max Nova 1 in a video. That post also features the traditional spelling of the word spinala with the use of the red B as opposed to the regular B. Again, this is a meme or reference as opposed to an actual theory. 30 years ago. This is once again a reference to a pre-race press conference in 2014. It is commonly known as the longest press conference question of all time. I'll play a brief snippet for you now.
Gentlemen, a short view back to the past. 30 years ago, Niki Lauda told us, take a monkey, place him into the cockpit, and he is able to drive the car. 30 years later, Sebastian told us, I had to start my car like a computer.
It goes on, but you know, time. Indianapolis, 2005. Now this has slight conspiracy aspects to it, but it's mainly known as a controversy that sort of cost F1 its reputation in the US for a while, and is one of the reasons why F1 moved away from the US in the early 2000s. So, F1 back in this time used 2 tire suppliers. You had Bridgestone and you had Michelin. In 2005, you were also not allowed to change your tyres during the race. And at Indianapolis that year, the amount of load and pressure put on the tyres, particularly around turn 13, meant that a lot of Michelin tyres were failing during practice. Because of this, a lot of the Michelin runners wanted to be able to change tyres during the race, so they could actually keep driving, and they threatened to boycott. There were a number of proposed changes that would allow Michelin drivers and teams to change their tyres, such as stop-and-go penalties, specific speed limits around corners so that way the tyres would last, such as turn 13. These only applied to the Michelin runners, by the way. They also proposed adding a chicane to this corner made out of tyres and stuff like that. None of it really came to fruition. Ultimately, no agreement was reached, and no Michelin tyre runners competed as a result, resulting in just 3 teams competing. Now these were your front runners Ferrari, and 2 teams lower down in the pack, Jordan and Minardi. So this sort of resulted in a rather farcical race with only 6 cars, 2 heaps ahead of the rest, and 4 slower runners. In the end, I do think this is what cost F1 its reputation in America for a number of years. Ericsson hit us. This refers to a radio message from driver Romain Grosjean after he crashed out of a race. However, it quickly became clear that it was actually Grosjean's fault, as he was warming up the tyres and lost control of the car, whilst Ericsson was about 50 metres back. Multi 21. An alleged code used by a number of F1 teams in the early 2010s in order to communicate team orders to their drivers. Most specifically, hold position and don't race each other. However, this is likely referring to a specific incident between teammates Mark Webber and Sebastian Vettel at the 2013 Malaysian Grand Prix, in which Mark Webber took an early lead and was told through Multi-21 that Seb would not battle him in the last 2 laps of the race. This was not the case, and Seb, allegedly, didn't follow team orders and overtook Mark within the final few laps. Team orders are not uncommon in the sport, and neither is disobeying them, as, for example, the current Red Bull team, Brazil 2022. That's Raidillon, actually. This is in reference to a series of corners at Spa-Francorchamps, specifically Eau Rouge and Raidillon. Basically, many people, including commentators, often get these corners confused, calling Eau Rouge Raidillon, as they are so close together on the track, and it is quite confusing, I will admit. DAS. Now, DAS is a controversial piece of Mercedes engineering and technology back in the 2020 season. DAS stands for dual axis steering and basically allowed the drivers to change the position of their front tires by pushing the steering wheel in and pulling it out, like so, meaning that the tires would heat up more evenly. Now, it was legal at the time of it being created, and Mercedes did nothing wrong and were allowed to keep it for the 22 season. However, due to the amount of advantage it gave them, it was banned for 2021 and onwards. Okay, so that is the first tier ticked off. Took a bit longer to get through than I expected, but that's okay. Not so many conspiracies, a few controversies, and a whole lot of memes and reference. Nothing too juicy, however, I expect that to come later, so without further ado, here's tier 2. Oh, that rhymed. Fernando is faster than you. Now, this refers to a radio message sent to Felipe Massa during the 2010 German Grand Prix, where essentially he was told his teammate Fernando, who was just behind him, was faster than him. And he let him by because at this point he was pretty much out of contention for the title. However, this is only controversial in the fact that in the 2010 season, team orders were banned. So it's sort of like was a team order situation, wasn't a team order situation. Many teams still used team orders, but they sort of did it through more vague terms, vague codes, vague terms, although I don't know how vague that one was. However, the next year this ban was lifted. Nico Hülkenberg's 0 podiums. Now, this isn't a controversy or theory whatsoever, it is a fact. Nico Hülkenberg still has 0 podiums. Despite an incredibly promising junior career, it is a surprise that the Hulk doesn't have a podium at this point. He has come close on a number of occasions and has lost out, most of it through bad luck or things completely out of his own control, and really he does deserve a podium at this point, so it's quite surprising. Most recently at the Australian Grand Prix, he was up in 4th position before the final red flag was called out, and if the grid hadn't been reverted, then he would have finished the race in 3rd once Sainz has gotten his penalty. So again, this close to a podium, but alas. Tracing point. Now before Aston Martin was Aston Martin, they were Racing Point. And for the 2020 season, they showed up with a car that looked suspiciously similar to last year's championship winner, the Mercedes W10, some even dubbing the design the Pink Mercedes. It was found out that the team used a combination of pictures and 3D images in order to be inspired, recreate some aspects of this design. However, it really just looked like a carbon copy, but spray painted pink. And they were fined, but only for the brake duct. This brought up issues of copying and cheating, such as Spygate in 2007, which we might cover in a later Conspiracy Deep Dive video. Haas is last year's Ferrari. Now Haas and Ferrari have a relatively close relationship over the past 2 seasons. The factories are very close. Haas uses all of the parts they legally can from Ferrari. They have some of the staff that used to work at Ferrari that got laid off due to the cost cap era, and as such have produced pretty similar cars, right? They often look very similar to Ferrari, particularly the previous year's car. Now again, this makes sense, similar engineers, similar parts, everything like that. Well, this is particularly obvious with the lovely side pod designs we have now. Crashgate. Finally, the topic that sparked the idea for this video. The one that is all over the news right now, and this is going to be literally the briefest explanation possible, and it's still going to take a minute. Now, Crashgate occurred in the 2008 Singapore Grand Prix, where Nelson Piquet Jr. crashed out of the race, helping his teammate Fernando Alonso. This ended up causing a safety car, and Fernando, who had already pitted, was able to get ahead of everyone else as they came in and pitted underneath the safety car conditions, meaning that although he started the race in 15th, he finished first. Now, in 2009, after the Renault team dropped Nelson Piquet Jr., he alleged that they made him crash on purpose in order to help Fernando's title chances. This prompted an investigation into sports fixing, and eventually Renault was charged by the FIA for conspiracy. On September 16, 2009, Renault announced that they accepted and wouldn't try and fight these charges, and that both the team's managing director, Flavio Briatore, and its executive director of engineering, Pat Simmons, had left the team. Later, it was announced that the Renault F1 team would be disqualified for 2 years, pending any future infractions. So basically, they were on watch for the next 2 seasons and really couldn't mess up. Briatore was banned from all Formula One events and FIA-sanctioned events indefinitely, whilst Simmons received a 5-year ban. However, these were both overturned in French court, and we have seen them sort of in motorsport since then. Okay, so I think that's enough theories, controversies, and memes for one day. If you would like a part 2 to this video where we go even deeper, let me know. Or if there are any specific topics from this video you would like me to cover in more detail, I would be happy to do so in a separate video. And that brings this video to a wrap. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to like the video if you liked it, and press that red button to subscribe for more F1 and motorsport related content. And I will see you all in the next one. Laters!